and to imply that we should just ignore the impact that Caitlin Clark had on this team, this league, this sport. Nah, it doesn't work that way.
After basketball superstar Sue Bird had second thoughts about Caitlin Clark, the WNBA went completely insane.
Sue Bird calls out ESPN host for, quote, hating on WNBA playoff ratings after Caitlin Clark exit. You said what? Why?
Yes, exactly. Subbird, a former Caitlin supporter, criticized Stephen Smith, claiming that the WNBA is doing well without Clark. Caitlin is currently taking a lovely break, but may move to Europe in the future. Sue, however, thinks the numbers are still very high, which is untrue.
Has been impacting the WNBA well before this year. This is not a new thing. Sure. This is, and in that way, I do think Caitlin's being used as a pawn. Caitlin didn't bring systems to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us.
Sue was defending Caitlin at the time, but it appears that she has had enough, as social media has gone crazy over Caitlin's absence. Fans are reluctant to watch more WNBA because they want her back.
Viewership numbers with Caitlin Clark are astronomical. She is a big draw. She brings in all the things. And yes, the games where she's not playing have lower viewership. But in the WNBA playoffs are still breaking records from previous WNBA years.
Sue was defending Caitlin at the time, but it appears that she has had enough, as social media has gone crazy over Caitlin's absence. Fans are reluctant to watch more WNBA because they want her back.
They don't want it to grow if it's certain people at the face. And there is still this undertone of jealousy that for some reason I cannot get around calling it anything else but that, because I don't know what else it could be. I thought it was going to get better this season, but it hasn't. There are still people who seemingly, to me, feel like they just don't want Caitlin to be a part.
Rachel Dida raised an excellent point. When Caitlin is the face of the sport, WNBA legends do not want it to flourish. Instead of facing the competition that Caitlin offers, they would prefer to start over.
The problem, Sue Bird, I know that you gave her props and you acknowledged how phenomenal she was in terms of a draw. What Shannon Sharp and I were guilty of saying was that not enough folks were appreciating.
Being in the WNBA with Caitlin Clark was nothing short of revolutionary. But the moment she left the playoffs, the WNBA seemed to lose its vitality. The league may now be in serious peril due to growing rumors about Europe. At first, WNBA star Sue Bird had nothing but good things to say about Caitlin Clark. Bird had been a vocal advocate for Clark, believing that she was a player who could improve the outcome of the match. Sue Bird acknowledged in her opening remarks that Caitlin Clark was more than just a novice. She had the potential to completely transform women's basketball.
4 moved home games to bigger arenas when Indiana came to town to accommodate more fans. I'm not finished. Attendance for the entire league is up nearly 50% this year, and Indiana leads all teams with an average attendance of 17,035, up 319% from a year ago.
However, when Sue Bird started to minimize Clark's influence, things took an unexpected turn. This was surprising, particularly coming from someone who had praised Clark so highly in the past. Bird abruptly claimed that the WNBA's viewership had not changed substantially as a result of Caitlin Clark's appearance. Bird seemed to imply that Clark's absence was unrelated to the league's current problems, despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Bird's abrupt change of viewpoint left many fans perplexed and even enraged. Stephen A. Smith is the one person who has continuously stood behind Caitlin Clark. Smith, who is well known for his audacious viewpoints and unvarnished criticism, has never shied away from controversy. Additionally, Clark was quick to express his opinions after leaving the playoffs. Smith didn't hold back. He said the playoff excitement had been dampened by Clark's absence.
Let's just say the ratings aren't the same with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever now eliminated. Game 1 of the Aces Liberty matchup on Sunday drew an average of 929,000 viewers. Was down nearly 50% from last Sunday's Fever Sun contest. By the way, not only was viewership down, but attendance was as well.
Smith saw it as more than simply one person quitting the game. It has to do with the WNBA losing its main attraction. He emphasized that the league needs to realize how crucial Clark was to their success by pointing out that viewership had drastically decreased since her departure. Smith's position was more than a passing remark. It was an appeal for action. He said the WNBA should do more to support stars like Clark and maintain the momentum. Sue Bird, however, wouldn't have it. She openly criticized Stephen A. Smith for his remarks, claiming that he was incorrect to blame Caitlin Clark's absence alone for the drop in playoff viewership. Bird retorted that there were other variables at work and that no single player was responsible for all of the excitement surrounding the playoffs. Fans and commentators engaged in a contentious debate when Bird refuted Smith's assertions. Stephen A. Smith was one of those who thought Caitlin Clark was the main cause of the playoff fervor. Conversely, WNBA legend Sue Bird maintained that the league was larger than any one player, especially one with Clark's level of influence.
A lot of this noise came by people that were sitting on this network. They tried to minimize her, said, well, you giving her all this credit. What about the women that came before her? What the women came before her, what they did cannot be taken away. That ain't got nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. But there was a lot of people tried to make sure they keep Caitlin Clark in her place, because what you're doing, if you give her all this shine, you minimize what they done. We saw the ratings. We saw the merchandise sales. We saw the attendance. But y'all want to make it about something.
Subbird continued to challenge Stephen Smith A. She strengthened her position and refused to acknowledge that the fall in WNBA viewership was mostly due to Caitlin Clark's departure. Bird maintained that the decline in interest wasn't solely due to Clark, despite the fact that ratings fell sharply following his departure. Many fans were irritated by this failure to recognize the Caitlin Clark influence. The numbers did not lie, after all. When Clark was playing, the number of spectators increased, and when she was off the court, it drastically decreased. Those who had been closely watching the playoffs were not pleased to learn that there were other causes for the drop. It was difficult to overlook the connection between Clark's departure and the decline in ratings, as fans noted that the excitement surrounding the games had significantly diminished following her departure. However, Bird persisted in standing her ground and refused to give Clark the recognition that many felt she was due.
Caitlin Clark has created more buzz around the basketball landscape and has actually transformed and revived a league that was the WNBA, and she is getting paid a measly $28 million.
The controversy around Caitlin Clark's influence made this gap between Sue Bird and the fans even more obvious. Many people believed that the WNBA's veterans were out of touch with the league's present situation because Bird refused to acknowledge Clark's impact. The very legends they had once loved were now alienating fans who had been brought to the WNBA by Clark's performances. Many were concerned that Bird, who had previously been seen as a mentor to younger players, was now downplaying Clark's importance. It made people wonder if the WNBA was prepared to change or if it was unable to completely embrace the talents of the next generation because it was mired in the past. One of the most perplexing elements of the whole incident has been the WNBA's unwillingness to acknowledge Caitlin Clark's influence in its entirety. It was evident that Clark was unique as soon as she joined the league.
Don't y'all want a greater profile? Don't y'all want more notoriety? Don't y'all want more hype? I understand that it's going on still without her now that she's out of the playoffs because the games have been great. But the fact of the matter is, she swelled the interest in the sport.
Large crowds attended her games. She stood out from many of her colleagues due to her exceptional social media presence and her capacity to engage with followers. The WNBA, however, was reluctant to completely adopt the Caitlin Clark effect in spite of everything. The WNBA was unable to take advantage of the surge of attention that Clark brought to the league, whether it was because of internal politics, player jealousy, or a plain inability to recognize her star power. Rather than positioning her as the WNBA spokesperson, the league seems happy to let her succeed independently without the full backing of its marketing apparatus. Once Clark left the playoffs, the league's viewership figures started to decline, making this error costly.
Caitlin Clark effect is definitely real. I mean, we can all see that. However, experiencing it in person is totally different. I was at the Fever in Indiana game last night, and the amount of 22s that I saw on the way to the arena and inside the Capital One Arena might as well have just been a home game for Caitlin Clark. Not Indiana, Caitlin Clark. The thing is, that didn't surprise me. But what did surprise me was how packed the game.
The WNBA lost out on a chance to expand its fan base and establish its reputation in the sports industry by not fully understanding the Caitlin Clark effect. Rather, it is currently dealing with dwindling viewership, disgruntled supporters, and a lack of excitement surrounding its major events. The league is in a risky situation that might be challenging to overcome as a result of its unwillingness to accept Clark's star power. Stephen A. Smith has continued to be one of Caitlin Clark's most outspoken advocates throughout it all. Although others have minimized her influence or completely disregarded her achievements, Smith has continuously criticized what he perceives to be an attempt to harm Clark. Smith has brought attention to the way the league appears to treat Clark differently than other players, whether it is through lack of off-court promotion or on-court targeting. He has discussed how opponents have singled Clark out, called him out for fouls, and ignored him in terms of league-wide recognition.
Stephen A., respectfully, with your platform, you could have been doing this 3 years ago if you wanted to.
All right, we gotta go.
Stephen A., I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you.
Wow.
Don't do that. I'm talking to you about the power that you have.
Really
You
appreciate
missed, my girl, but you missed a lot of episodes the first.
Many of Caitlin Clark's supporters are starting to call for her to quit the WNBA entirely as the scandal surrounding her treatment there intensifies. They contend that Clark would be better off competing in the EuroLeague, where she would probably be treated with greater dignity and have access to greater financial prospects. Fans in Europe think Clark's skills would be completely recognized, and she wouldn't have to put up with the harassment and abuse she endures in the WNBA. Many members of Clark's fan base are urging her to make the move as quickly as possible, and the campaign is becoming louder every day. They think Clark would do better playing in a league that appreciates her abilities and achievements because the WNBA has proven itself.
Would be a team overseas who would love to snatch Caitlin Clark away from us and give her a crazy offer. I mean, Ice Cube was about to give her $5 million to play in less than 10 games in the Big Three. So the money is there, and if these owners are smart with it, I could definitely see more WNBA players going overseas and possibly not.
Fans also urge Caitlin Clark to think about leaving the WNBA because of the financial opportunities in Europe. Her celebrity power hasn't been completely utilized by the WNBA, but the EuroLeague might provide her with a more lucrative future. Clark would not only make more money in Europe, but she would also be respected as one of the top women's basketball players. Supporters contend that Clark wouldn't have to cope with the envy and small-time politics that have dogged her WNBA career in Europe. She should instead concentrate on her strengths, which are dominating on the court and enhancing her reputation as one of the game's most entertaining players. It's no secret that Caitlin Clark is a target in the WNBA due to her dominance. Instead of welcoming the heightened competition, some current and legendary players have publicly stated that they want her to quit the league. Even if it meant losing fans, they think the league would be better off without her. According to these players, Caitlin Clark is too skilled and adds more competition to the league than they would like. Some players, especially those accustomed to being the league's top stars, view Clark as a threat because of her ability to raise the bar for play. They view her as someone who challenges the current quo rather than as a welcome addition. Some players are pushing Clark out of the WNBA as a result of this jealousy, even if it means less people will watch.